Today we're going to be discussing mentoring. And this concept of mentoring comes from Homer's Odyssey, where the elderly mentor teaches life skills to the young Telemachus. Following this Greek tradition, Socrates mentored Plato, who in turn mentored Aristotle, who later mentored Alexander the Great. And as we speak about mentoring today, I am Edgar Woodman, and with me I have two pastors who have a passion, who have an interest in the subject of mentoring. We've got Pastor Sam Kerster with us, and we've got Pastor Michael Smith. I'm going to hand over to Pastor Sam to introduce himself, and then thereafter Pastor Michael. Pastor Sam.
Thank you very much, Edgar. I'm Sam Kerster, pastoring in the Northern Conference of the South African Union. What a privilege to minister to people. At the moment, I have 3 churches that I'm pastoring in the western side of Johannesburg. I've been pastor now for 11 years. Started my ministerial career in the Cape Conference, and my family and I are now here in the beautiful Johannesburg for 6 years as I speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pastor Sam.
Hi, I'm Mike Smith. I'm also a pastor in the Northern Conference of South Africa. Although I'm not tied to a specific local church, my ministry is focused on counseling. So all I do 24/7 is basically just counseling and training counseling. And that counseling is usually for individuals and couples. And so that is where my focus is, on how to build those healthy relationships and to become people that can survive in this world.
Thank you. So Pastor Mike, maybe we can start off. As we said, we're speaking about mentoring today, right? And from your perspective, how would you define mentoring? What is this thing of mentorship?
Yeah, I think each one of us will probably have our own definition. And if you go and Google what is mentorship, you're going to have a couple of different ways of defining this. As I think about mentorship, it's really about one person who has walked the path and has become good at walking a certain path, that will now walk that path with another person who is maybe not so great at walking that path yet. And so that person can view them and see them and learn from them and grow with them together in this journey of life.
Thank you. Pastor Sam, anything that you would like to add, enhance that, your perspective on what is mentorship?
Well, I read an article 2 or 3 days ago by a man by the name of S. Joseph Kidder. He's a lecturer at Andrews University. I like the article very much, and he had this little definition on mentorship. He says it's the relationship process between a mentor and a mentee for the purpose of transforming or transferring, I should say, knowledge, wisdom, and skills gained through experience. So here's an experienced person who has knowledge, who has wisdom, and who has certain skills. And he wants to transfer that knowledge onto somebody that he wants to help along that little path that we are walking. To get to the end of somebody growing to a point spiritually, professionally, and a holistic development of a person. So there's one person that has a little bit of experience, he has gained knowledge, he has certain skills, and he wants to transfer that knowledge to somebody that is learning. And through that process, hopefully that person will grow, yes. and not just in one aspect of his life, but holistically.
I think, what you mentioned there is very interesting, the desire to let your skills and your abilities and your knowledge and all of that transfer to another person. Right. As humans, we tend to be, if we know how something works, we've got a nice idea, we want to keep it to ourselves. I don't want to tell you how to do that, because then you're going to be just as good as me, right? So we're a bit selfish in that. Yeah. And so mentoring is where you are not really standing above this person trying to be better than them, but you're actually opening yourself up to share what you know and what you can do with another person, because you have a desire to see that person flourish and become so much better than what maybe they even think they can be.
Right. It reminds me of a conversation I had with 2 elderly people there's this beautiful history of how the Indian church started in South Africa.
Okay.
And as they were relating this information to me, I asked now, what is going to happen with that information? Are you going to die with that information, or are you going to transfer that information to the younger generation so that they can learn from that? And actually, because they've learned out of that, there's that rich history that they can build upon, and even the church can become a better church. If they don't transfer that knowledge will die with them.
Right.
As it were.
And just listening to what you're saying, there's something that's going on in my mind here. Because both of you spoke very much from the perspective of a mentor, who's somebody who's walked a path and is willing to and wanting to transfer information to somebody else. What's the role then of the mentee? Because surely somebody that's being mentored, the mentee, they must want to have information transferred to them. You know, and that like changes the relationship a little bit, the desire to want it. And as we thinking about that a little bit as well, there's this thing that when you look up, as you said earlier on, when you look up definitions, you're going to find many different definitions for mentorship. And there seem to be lots of definitions that are related to the workplace, that are related to career. And so my question that's kind of linked to what I was asking about the mentee is, how different is a mentorship relationship, mentor-mentee, to that of a coach and player, or a manager and a worker? Is there a fundamental difference, or are there grey areas?
Yeah, in my mind, it has got to do with how you define it and what the needs are. Look, we can look at differences between a coach and a manager and a mentor. A coach, there's always the saying that those who can't do, teach. It's like, even if I haven't walked the path, I can tell you how to walk the path. Just listen to me. I can't do it myself, but just listen to me, right? And that's possible. The manager is this kind of a person that you have to listen to.
Yes.
It's not that desire really to want to be like this person, or to want to really listen to them. You have to, or you're going to lose your job. Okay, so there's a kind of an enforcement. But when we look at a mentorship, that is a little bit different. It seems to me as a much more mature and socially and emotionally, what is the word? Mature. Yeah, not mature necessarily, but integrated relationship. Right. So it's not very clinical. It is more like, I get to know you as a person, and you kind of get to know me as a person. And to be able to walk a path together. And, you know, sometimes the mentor can even learn from the mentee. It's like, okay, you asked me to be your mentor, right? In what exactly? It's like, okay, you want to mentor in knowing how to, just as an example, grow spiritually. Okay, let's walk this path together. And I may be able to lead you and help you in that, but guess what? There might be things that you are better at than me, and I, as the mentor, can even learn from you. So it's this dynamic, two-way relationship that can develop between people. That's not just clinical and, you know, here are all the things on the page and you must do this, tick, 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 tick.
So it's more relational in its execution as such. Pastor Sam?
I'm going to answer your question just now.
Just before you answer that question, just a thought that you need to... Pastor Mike said here that those who can't do, teach. And I know that you were a teacher. So maybe you can weave that into your experience in teaching.
Yeah, maybe just before we get there. Mike was talking about sometimes the mentee teaches you as a mentor certain stuff that sometimes surprises you. And it happens to me a lot of time. Especially with the mentee pastors that I mentor. Sometimes we would sit in the church board, you know, and we will come up with a certain issue, and then this mentee, they've been twice already with me, will say something that I would say, my goodness, I didn't even think about that, you know. So afterwards we would have a little talk in the week, and we have a little talk, and I say, you know what, I actually learned from you. That little thing that you've done there and the other, and so on. So it's very true. Sometimes we learn from the people that we try to mentor.
Excellent.
We're talking about differences between mentees or mentors and coaches and managers and
Yeah.
everything. I was a teacher
Yeah.
for 11 years. So I would look at being a teacher, a coach, because I coached also a volleyball team once and everything
Okay.
else. And now I'm a mentor, mentoring pastors also. So teachers is more about conveying information
Mm-hmm.
and facts. So I taught biology, life sciences they say these days. You want to teach facts on cell respiration, on photosynthesis, or on genetics and that and the other. So you're teaching facts.
Yeah.
That's what teaching is all about. When it comes to coaching, you want to get to a specific goal.
Mm-hmm.
You want to teach them or actually get to the point where they know when the other one is serving, your opponent is serving, that's how you hold your hands. There's different methods of holding your hands when you dig the ball.
Yeah.
You want to get to that specific goal. But when it comes to mentoring, it's about personal growth and development.
Okay.
And that's why it is so important in our definition we were talking about the relationship. There needs to be a relationship between the mentor
Mm-hmm.
and the mentee. Because you're trying to develop not just external stuff, you're trying to develop the person.
Yes.
And hence mentorship is more about growth as a person and developing as a person as well.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So, we're speaking about mentorship and we've weaved in a few times already the spiritual elements. So let's talk a little bit about the space of mentorship in the Christian realm, the Christian church, within relationships within Christianity. And since we're doing this for the Adventist Men's Organization, especially older men with younger men, what are some of the aspects that are common in mentorship, irrespective of whether it's outside the church or in the church? And where's there that uniqueness that comes in when we're talking about it from a Christian perspective?
Sure.
What it is?
Yeah, just immediately the words of Paul, come
Yes.
to mind. Imitate me as I imitate Christ.
Amen.
And so there is maybe, first of all, less of, in the Christian sphere at least, less of an emphasis on me as the hero
Yeah.
and more on Christ as the hero. You understand?
Yes.
So it's not that I'm so amazing, it's that, hey man, I'm just walking this path with you.
Yes.
And so far, I'm still walking the path, so just try and do what I'm doing. but inevitably, where we want to go is actually there to that person and be like him. And so
Yes.
there's a greater goal to achieve than to be like me, and that is to be like Christ.
Thank you.
So I think that would be, for me, the first kind of a
Yes.
thing there that distinguishes Christian mentorship from others.
Okay, great. Thanks, Pastor. Sam?
So that's quite brilliant, Mikey. I think that was quite brilliant. Mentorship has been in the church for long.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking about it this morning. If we don't have mentorship within the church would die.
Yes.
Because if we're not going to mentor the generation before us, how is the church going to develop into the church where it should be? Because the current generation is not making sure that those who come behind us are well equipped and mentored to take the church forward.
Yeah.
And as I'm saying, the church, in all its history, the mentorship has been part of the church as it were, since the inception of time almost. God actually did that right from the beginning. I read in the Bible in Numbers chapter 8, 23 and 26 about how God actually asked Moses to make sure that the younger Levites that come behind would be trained by the Levites that has already been doing the job.
Yeah.
To the point that God says to Moses, when they turn 50, they mustn't be Levites anymore. Now their job description actually changed now. Their job description changed to now we must teach the younger Levite that's coming behind us to do the job. So the job doesn't stop. They've been doing the work, but at 50 now they mustn't do the job anymore. Now they must stop doing the job. Their work, their job description actually changed now. Now they must teach these younger Levites that's coming behind them to be proper Levites. And hence, when they turn 50, they will teach and mentor the ones that come behind. And that is how God actually makes sure that this leadership, the Levites, it stays moving forward,
Yes.
because the older generation makes sure that the younger generation that comes behind them are learning the ropes and know how to do the job, actually.
So that, I think, is a very good transition to the next question that I had in mind.
Well, I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
Just wondering, how do we usually practice that mentorship in the church?
Yes.
You know, I don't find that we are very good at that always. I find that we tend to, especially when it comes to the young people, we don't approach them as mentors usually. We approach them as judges. So, you know, when somebody is in the church and they're not doing something that I approve of, then I will go and tell them that that's their fault, their mistake. Without any relationship, I'm just adding criticism to that person who's probably already struggling with a lot of criticism wherever they're coming from. Mentorship takes away that criticism in the relationship, where the criticism is on a foundation of there's no safety. I think that the core of Christian counseling should be, here I am going to create a actual safe space for people. And the safe space allows for people to think and thrive. Like the pastors that you have supervised, you know. Those pastors, it's not that they are incompetent. They are probably very intelligent people, and they just need a safe environment where they are allowed to sometimes give ideas that are not so good. But then giving that space allows them to then have the ideas that are actually very good. And so I think providing safety for people in our church, for young people. I speak to many young people, and they often feel very criticized. Now, yes, there's a place for criticism, constructive criticism, but that must usually come from a place of safety and trust and relationship. Once those things have been established, then people can take criticism much more. But if you criticize someone who doesn't feel safe, they are going to be defensive.
Right.
They're not going to want to follow your way. They're just going to kick against it, and they're going to fight you. You know, like a dog cornered there, It's like, who's going to bite you? All right. So I don't think in a church we have really taken this seriously, number one, and number two, actually done it in such a way that it can give good fruit.
So taking what you're saying into consideration, there's two things that come to mind for me. The first is you spoke about creating the space.
Safe space.
Right. And that does seem to still say that there are limits that we put in place, but those limits create a space of safety within those, so that the church doesn't go off the rails, but we are still the church under the auspices of Christ and His leading and those principles. But within that box, within those limits, go mad. Right? Let's be people that give younger people the opportunity to really do what God is putting on their heart to do, and provide the guardrails without it being criticizing all the time. That's the first thing.
Yeah, I think sometimes we have too many fears ourselves, and that can cause those guardrails to also probably not be in the right places.
Yes.
It's like sometimes the things that we think are guardrails are really just your preference or my preference.
Yes.
It's not really a biblical law that is governing this. It's just like, oh, you are uncomfortable wearing sandals to church, you know, for instance. And then, we must keep this guardrail there, you know, as long as we all just wear shoes, then we are safe. Now, I think that we have to also question why do we put certain guardrails there, and to allow the platform for young people also to ask those questions. And unfortunately, again, I'm sounding like very negative towards the church here, but we have not been good at creating a platform for people in our church to ask questions and to differ. People don't feel comfortable. Like, I'll just give you a silly example. Someone loses somebody that they love to death, okay? And they are struggling with God because they pray that God will help them and assist them with this issue. And God just didn't answer their prayer. Now they're struggling to pray. But they can't speak to anybody about it, because if they speak to anybody about this, they get criticized, they get judged. Oh, you're not a good Christian. And so, are we willing to actually provide a platform where there is risk involved?
Yeah.
Can we become comfortable with the risk so that other people can have a chance?
Yes, yes.
I think there's another thing that we all also should look at as it pertains to mentor-mentee. We should also remember that where we were a few years ago,
Yes,
we should not forget that we were also in those shoes
yes,
a few years back. And how we have learned, somebody has taken us by the hand and made sure that we were led in a way that we could grow and we could develop. And hence we are now in the position where we can mentor somebody now.
do that, yes.
Because we all are growing. I almost want to speak Afrikaans here, but I think we have. When I was still teaching, one of the subjects that we had was education, opvoedkunde. And we had a little textbook, not a textbook, but quite a thick textbook. And the very first chapter, the very first line of that book says, we mustn't forget, ons almal is mens in wording. We all are.
People in development.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All of us are. Even the mentor
Yes,
has not arrived yet.
yes,
And that's why it's so important what Mikey said earlier. We learn even from our mentees. And hence we learn every single day. So we shouldn't forget. The person that we are mentoring, the mentee, he is still developing, and we must be patient with that person. And hence I'm saying that we should not forget where we were a few years ago when we work with these young people.
Yeah.
Don't be too hard and too harsh on them.
And Pastor Mike made a statement earlier on, you quoted, follow me, Paul said, as I follow Christ, right?
1 Corinthians 11, verse 1.
And if we take that as where the guardrail gets developed, as I follow Christ, not my preference, but as I follow Christ, I think it puts a different perspective in how a mentor goes about the mentorship journey, right?
Yeah, I think maybe what we can add there is that it is important, I think, in mentorship, Christian mentorship, to attach this person to God.
Yes.
Because if someone is, if you look at the New Covenant that's spoken of even in the Old Testament, it is, no longer will you need your neighbor to teach you.
Yes.
Because I will be your teacher, says the Lord. So there is a space where that is God's space that needs to be occupied for this person in their life, and they need to develop a connection with Him where they are open to listen to God. I'd much rather have somebody who does not live like I do at all, but they are open to God's voice, than somebody who does everything right. They grow up Adventists, they look perfect, suit and tie and whatever you must have. But they are not really open to God's voice. And so I think our responsibility, if we can connect someone to that, then to God, then even if we leave, they can still continue the journey without us having to be there. Because in the end, it's not about you. You're just one version of what could be the truth.
Right. So if we take that thinking further and we look at the Bible itself, are there some good examples of mentorship relationships within the Bible? I think for me, the one that came to mind, and it linked to what Pastor Sam was speaking about earlier on, was Jethro with Moses. Right? Moses was doing what he thought was right. He was doing things in a way that he had seen it happen. He came from a space where rulership was the strong thing. And he was told basically, you need to delegate.
Hey, that's a very good skill to have.
Yeah.
I think most grown-ups
struggle with it.
Don't do that. They don't know how to say no. They just want to do everything because they don't look fancy. They don't learn how to dedicate and just let other people do things.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about that is when his father-in-law spoke to him, he could have had that mentality, I'm in charge here.
Yes.
The Lord has put me in charge of this people and this nation to lead them to the promised land. But what did he do? He listened. And he didn't just listen. He acted on what he has the information that he got from his father-in-law. A few other examples in the Bible,
Yes.
talking about mentorship. I think about Eli and Samuel. And Samuel became one of the most prominent prophets in the Bible. There's also the example of Elijah and Elisha. The Bible teaches us that Elijah had 8 miracles that he has done over his lifetime. And this mentee, who became now the prophet now, he had 16 miracles that he had over his lifetime. And that leads to the point. And that leads to the point also. That leads also to the point, Mikey, that sometimes our mentee will exceed us.
Yes.
They will actually become better than us. And that's not a minus.
Do you have the humility to accept that and be
That's
happy
right.
even about it?
I was back in my home church in Oudtshoorn where I kind of mentored a few young people also, and that and the other. And some of those young people, even today, when I listen to their sermons, I'm a pastor, I'm a trained minister. I was taught homiletics and how to preach and that and the other. But when I go home and I listen to some of those young men, that's a little bit younger than me, not so young anymore, but younger than me, they preach well. And I taught them, So, and it made me feel so good to know, listen here, if you're not even around anymore one day, these guys can take the baton, or they've already taken the baton, as it were. A few other examples I also think about was Jesus himself and his disciples. And listen what Jesus says to his disciples. He says to them, you know what? You will do greater things than I have done. And didn't
a
they?
crazy thing to say, isn't it?
Didn't they? But his form of mentorship was not necessarily, maybe it's mingled with teaching and coaching. But his mentorship was shown. Think about this for a while. Was showing the disciples how to do what to do when he will not be around anymore. To the point, when he went to heaven, that's Jesus now, that his disciples' shadow would heal people. That's how he mentored them, to trust in God in such a way that even their shadow would heal people. And what a brilliant example of mentorship. Who's the best mentor that we can think of other than Jesus?
Absolutely.
Just a few examples that
So you guys are, as we go through this, I hope people listening are maybe starting to note down some principles of mentorship, like delegation, humility, a desire to see the other person exceed and grow. Modeling, If you think maybe of Paul and Timothy.
And Timothy as well.
Paul mentored Timothy. And one of the things that I like what Paul did, and maybe that's because I'm a bit younger, if I were to just look at But what did Paul say to Timothy about his age? Hey, don't let other people look down on you because of your age. There are people that are even half my age that I need to just, Michael, you need to stop and listen to this person. Because not only are they better at you than something, but maybe they've got a word for you. And sometimes we want to disqualify a person based on their age or gender or whatever it is, that we can't hear something from them when God has an actual message from that person. And so I think what Paul says that he broke down probably something that was not a shortcoming for Timothy, but that Timothy felt like, his self-esteem was maybe not so good because, I'm young, I can't say much, people in the church have told me, hey man, you are 5 years old, why am I going to listen to you? Okay, so not after these words, like an Afrikaans person would say. And yet Paul was like, no, that's not what qualifies you. God can use you despite your age. Let us not conform to the principles of this world, but let us conform to the guidance of the Holy Spirit and God's principles. That we don't need to be 50 years old to teach somebody something.
Sure, and that's a very important point, because sometimes a mentor is not necessarily senior in years. He might be senior in profession, in the workplace, but he's not necessarily always a senior in years. He might be. I was sitting in one of our churches, my wife and I, my daughter, visiting this church, and there was this young man. He's successful there in the corporate world. I'm talking about a young man. And here we are sitting, I'm almost twice his age,
Yes.
and he's doing well. And the things that came out of his mouth, yeah, I wish the two of you could have been there.
Yeah.
It's so brilliant.
Yes.
And he taught me a few things that I said, in my 53 years of life, I've never heard that.
Yes. Yes.
Not senior in years, but he did teach me a thing or two that Saturday morning.
I had I'm trying not to mention names here, but one of the favorite elders that I've ever known, that I respect, top 5 people that I respect in this world, whether it's in spirituality or how you treat people or how you manage relationships, was an elder in a church that was about, I think he was 21.
Yeah.
21 years old, an elder in the church. So your age does
Yes.
not have to be a limit at all for you. And I think mentors need to keep that in mind also. Again, the humility thing. The humility thing.
Yeah. So for this last few moments now, we spoke a lot about the mentor. But we're supposed to be really speaking to the young men who are watching this. And if there's a young man out there who is in a space where he's looking for mentors in different areas of life, what would be some of the things that that young man needs to consider? I know that hopefully he's been taking notes because there's been a lot of good pearls of wisdom as we've gone along. But what would be some of the specifics that you'd say look out for to a young man?
Sure.
I'll maybe just start with this. Find someone you respect in whatever field it is.
Okay.
It's like there are people in the church that I'm sure you have looked up to, that have inspired you. Get into contact with those people. Sometimes people ask me about mentorship in work, and where do we start with this? And we want this person, that person, or that business. We don't know really where to begin. And I say, well, okay, who are you following on Instagram?
Yes. Yes.
It's like that person you're following on Instagram is someone you respect.
Yes.
Get in touch with them. They know the business. They know how to do this.
Right.
They obviously have specialized in it. And so, first of all, find who are the role models, who are the people that you respect. And then, number 2, don't give up in your search to connect with the people that will be your mentor. As a young person, when I came into the church, when I started to be a pastor, at Helderberg and so on, I really wanted a mentor, someone just to give me some kind of an advice on how to do this. And I had contacted many people in our church without any response.
Sure.
Yeah.
Very much.
But sometimes the most unlikely you will think, this person would never respond to an email from me. I remember, I think we all know David Ashby, for instance.
Yes.
I at the time sent him an email as some young guy from South Africa. Listen, I'm going to be a pastor, and I can see that there are some principles that you hold to that I really respect. Do you have some advice for me on how to approach this ministry thing? And he sent me a long email just detailing this and this and this, be careful of this and so on. And that email was actually so special to me. I still have that email somewhere. But I still have that email because, you know what, and I still read it sometimes to just recalibrate a little bit. So don't give up if one person, does not have the time or the energy or whatever. That's fine. Find somebody. Go ahead, find somebody else until you find what you are looking for.
Great. Pastor Sam?
Sure. I have quite a few, but I'm going to just mention 3 or 4 of them. Number 1 is expertise. Find somebody that has the relevant knowledge and experience in your desired field. You cannot find somebody. I want to go into the IT field, but I'm going to look for a mentee who's a pastor.
Yes.
So get a person that has the right expertise and help you in your field. Number 2, wisdom. Wisdom, ability to offer insightful guidance, advice, and also perspective. And then empathy also. Ability to relate to your experience and show understanding. A positive role model as well. Because you don't want to have somebody that doesn't have a a good reputation. You want to follow somebody, you want to learn from someone.
Yes.
It is a positive role model. Demonstrate values, work ethics, and behavior you aspire to as a mentee now.
Yes, yes.
And the one that you mentioned earlier also, Mikey, you talked about humility. Ne? Recognize their own limitations and is willing to learn from you as a mentee as well. I think there's two other things that I also want to just mention. The one is availability.
Yes.
Your mentor must be available, ne? Willing to commit to time and energy to mentor you. And then the last one, I can mention a few others, but I'm going to just mention this last one, is patience. Patience. Understanding your growth is a process and is willing to support you through your challenges. So that's the few that I want to just put out there for someone that is looking for a mentor, a few characteristics that might assist you in your search.
Yeah, I might just add one that you maybe kind of mentioned, alluded to there. Know your weaknesses.
Yes.
Find people that are really good at what you really suck at.
Yeah.
If I can use that word. And it's not always easy to hear that you're not very good at something. I remember once sitting in a room, and in the next room there were people discussing me that didn't know I was standing here, and that I could hear them. And they were not saying very nice things to me. They were like about me, saying very bad things about me. And in that moment, God also said to me, okay, Mike, all right, it's not nice what you are hearing, but listen.
Yes.
If it's not true, let it go. But if it is true, then you need to listen up, because this is the opportunity for you to become a better person.
Yes.
And so, we have to be aware and listen to just that possible weaknesses that we have. And then what is it? Okay, so I've got these 5 weaknesses. Where could I be 5 years from now if I was to fix this and this and this and this and this? How would that improve my life, my relationships, my work, etc.? And then you start prioritizing which one you're going to work on, and you start with that one, you get somebody that's really good at that, and they can help you through that journey.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for the time that you've given to this discussion today. To every young man that's out there that is in a space where you're looking for a mentor, we hope that this journey that's been started is one that you will be willing to travel, that you will be willing to go along with the Adventist Men's Organization and really see the importance of mentorship in your life. Just some statistics to end with, maybe to leave some thoughts. Youth need mentors, and research shows that youth who are mentored, young people who are mentored, are 46 to 70% less likely to do drugs. They are 27% less likely to initiate alcohol use. They are 53% less likely to skip classes, to bunk school. They are 30% less likely to hit somebody, and are more confident in their schoolwork or academics. Those are just some of the benefits. You've heard this discussion, and so we challenge you today, especially where Pastor Mike ended, where you can see areas of weakness. Find somebody that can help you. But more importantly, or most importantly, let's remember where we started. That person needs to have a mindset that says, follow me as I follow Christ.